we will start the session maybe in another 2 to 5 minutes because we are waiting for people to join. So kindly bear with me. We will start the session in exactly 3 minutes from now. Thanks. Hello everyone. Can you let me know if you can hear me clearly, or do you have issues hearing me? Okay, we will start the session in another 2 minutes. We are waiting for some more participants to join. So just bear with me for another 2 minutes. Hello all, can you please hear me? Does everybody hear me now? Okay, fine. I think we have fixed the audio issues. Thanks to you people. Okay, so yesterday, what did we discuss? We spoke first as how HANA evolved. Okay, first we had any database over which SAP was built on. SAP was on top of any database. Then from Okay. First, SAP was on top of any database. Okay. Then, way back from the late to SAP was on top of HANA. Okay. So we had SAP, but the underlying database was HANA. Okay. So what do I mean by S4 HANA? In S4 HANA, my database is going to be HANA. On top of it, I'm going to have SAP Business Suite for HANA, which is SFIN. Okay. So whatever we are going to discuss. On top of which, we had our user interface, which was my SAP Fiori. Okay. So this is what we learned yesterday, and this is what was covered in detail in yesterday's class. For some people who have who couldn't join us yesterday, we will share the recordings with you, so you need not worry about that. Okay. So, but the whole idea was only this much. Okay. Now, what is today's agenda? Today we are going to see an overview for SAP Simple Finance. Okay. So, when I talk about SAP Simple Finance, I just need to know what are the things that it is going to consist of, or what are the things we are going to talk about. So first things first. Okay. SAP Simple Finance consists of three parts. One is going to be my SAP Accounting, which is going to be powered by SAP HANA. Then I have SAP Cash Management. Then I have SAP Integrated Business Planning. This is more like your SAP BC, Business Process Consolidation. Okay. So these three components are going to be the part of my business suite on HANA. Okay. When I say SAP Business Suite, no, so this is going to be my part of my on HANA. Now, this is my SAP Business Suite, under which, of course, my database is going to lie here, which is my SAP HANA database. Okay. Now, each of these particular compounds, like SAP Accounting, SAP Cash Management, SAP Integrated Business for Planning, this is what we are going to see in detail in our coming classes. Okay. As of today, our agenda is we just want to see what is Simple Finance, how SAP moved from a finance point of view to Simple Finance. So today is going to be more of an overview, and all details about accounting, cash management we are going to cover in our future classes. Okay. So when I spoke of SAP Accounting, we have to know what are the changes we are talking about. The first thing is called the principle of one. What do I mean by a principle of one? When I say the principle of one, first things first, universal journal entry. What is an universal journal entry? Yesterday, I had told you about an universal journal entry, which is nothing but instead of finance having a lot of line item tables, we are going to consolidate all our line item tables to one table, and that table, I'm going to call it a universal journal. Okay, so in the future, you do a finance transaction and the entry falls into this table. That entry is going to be called a universal journal entry. Okay, then from now onwards, you're going to have only one chart of accounts. Okay, then we are going to have something called a central finance deployment. Okay, so all these terminologies you just need to know now, because we are going to discuss it anyway in another 30 to 40 minutes down the lane. Okay, now these are the structural changes which is going to accounting. Okay, now why do we need to do all this? You know, when I say advantages, what are the advantages? It's going to be, you can have a better insight into watch period, how it is going to do all that. Then the second thing is, since Fiori has come up, you can do a graphical part of it. Traditional accounting can be done, and most importantly, you can do, in the case of Fiori, you can go ahead for drill down reporting. Of course, you can do drill down reporting now also, but a more easier drill down reporting happens in Fiori. What is a drill down reporting? There is an existing report. I click on a line item, it opens another report. Again, clicking on that, it may open another report, so on and so forth. Okay. The third thing, again, this I spoke a lot about yesterday, non-disruptiveness. You don't need to do any, you need not shut down the business to do a migration. Instead, we can do it over a period of time without disturbing anybody. And, the user need not have exclusively learned everything from start or scratch to implement SAP Simple Finance. Okay. So these are some concepts wise which we need to know first. Okay, now we will start with our current architecture. What is the current architecture we have in finance? Okay, so what is my current architecture? The architecture, I just need to know if I'm spelling it correctly. Okay. Okay, so let me start here. Assuming this is my GL. Okay, so what is a GL? A GL is a general ledger. Okay, now I'm going to do a GL posting, which is like I'm going to create a new account, new document, something I'm going to create now. What happens now? Some tables in the GL get updated. Not only GL tables get updated, we have one more module which is very related to finance, and you know it, isn't it? It's CO. We keep on saying FICO, FICO, isn't it? So essentially, once you do a GL posting, it is not only GL tables which get updated, but also CO tables get updated. Okay. Now, similarly, in the case of material ledgers, okay, we're going to buy a new material and stuff like that. In the case of ML, the same story is going to get repeated. It's not only ML tables is going to get updated, FI tables also will get updated. Okay. Likewise, if I'm going to take the case of asset accounting, okay, so affect my, it's not only going to update asset tables, but also some FI tables also. Then what else? We have a COPA, Fitability Analysis. Okay. So in case of COPA 2, whenever I'm going to implement something in COPA, again, some of the tables get affected. Okay. Now, in a scenario where multiple modules are updated in tables, at the end of the month, what do we do? Any finance people, month-end activities, you call it reconciliation, isn't it? You're trying to balance information between the tables. You don't want a set of information in CO table which is different from the information which is in GL table. To reconcile, you need to balance everything so that all the data in this different modules, in the tables in this different modules, remain this. So what happens here? Think of it. Same data will be in CO, will be in ML module, will be in asset accounting, will be in COPA, and you have to be very sure that all the data match. Okay. Now, there is a report which has to pick up some values from the GL. What happens? This report will first come to GL, check the tables here, then it may go to CO, then it may go to COPA, then it may go to accounting, then it may go to material ledger, and finally the output will come. That is the reason why most of the finance reports take a lot of time to run. If you are a finance, face it, you go to a user, it is always batch jobs. It is all reports. The report runs at the end of the day. Tomorrow morning, he gets the report. What is the reason? The reason is broken into sources of knowledge. Information is broken down into multiple sources of truth. So some part of the truth is present in the CO part of the SAP modules, in the GL FI part, the ML part, in the asset accounting part, and the COPA part. Now, one report has to pick up information from all these multiple modules, and then it has to give us the output. Okay. Now, we know there is, in order to run reports, we use something called business warehousing. Okay. So we have, I'll keep it here. This is my BW. Why I'm using my BW? I'm using BW because I want to run the reports, which means I'm going to pick up values. But then, since I told you that it has to connect to multiple systems to pick up the values, you know what will happen? One BW extractor cannot pick up the values by itself. So you will need multiple BW extractors here. You will need more than one BW extractors. Okay. So this is my current architecture. This is the reason why people always end up saying SAP is slow. It is never SAP is slow, because this architecture where there is multiple source of truth, you have to pick up data from different places. It naturally takes a lot of time. Okay. Now, disadvantages. We already have seen all the disadvantages. There are some more which we need to see. What is the some more disadvantages? By design, you need to do reconciliation, which means by design, at the end of the month, you need to check all the data is proper. Then, components are structured differently. What do I mean by components are structured differently? I may have a field here, which may be my accounting document number with 8 characters. Here, it may go for an accounting document with 10 characters, isn't it? Sometimes when you come across reports, your ABAP person will tell you, like, I'm facing these issues, I'm trying to match this stuff and all that stuff. The components are structured differently. The fields will differ from module to module. Okay. Then, again, I told you, there are multiple BW extractors which we need. Then, to pick up a value, you have to pick up data from one module, then move the data to some other module. Then finally, all comes down to BW and we have to put the report, which means it's going to take a lot of time. This is the current architecture. So, what did they decide? The design will scrap this entire concept. We'll scrap this entire concept. Why should we have multiple sources of truth? See, when it was designed, it was a beautiful idea. But when, you know, like way back in the 1970s till the 1990s, when R3 came up, when we say, okay, we will split the data, we'll keep it in 2 tables, even we think, okay, it's better, you know, I can take half the value from here, half the value from here. Because how do we think? We are programmed to think that system memory is very less. But actually, what is the case now? We have a huge memory. We are not bothered by what is the size of the table. But way back in the 1990s, you know, when we went to school, when we went to colleges, when we went to universities, that is what they told us. You have to use your system memory very wisely. You have to write queries very wisely, so on and so forth. Okay. So at that time, this was a good idea. You divide the data, split it up, store it in different tables, easier to pick up the values. But today it is not the case. So what did we do? We came across our new principle of one. That is what I mentioned about when I said the new principle of one. Okay. So let me put my header here. I'm going to call it the new principle of one. So my one, what is my new principle of one? It is my universal journal entry. Okay. So where do we start? We will start by designing a GL. Then maybe my profitability tables. Okay. So this is going to be my GL table. This is going to be my profitability. Okay. Now, I told you some fields. So let us assume some few fields. First field is ledger. Second field is company. Third, I will call account. Fourth, I may even have my profit center. Then I may have amount, so on and so forth. Okay. In the case of profitability, I may have option. Then I may have market segment. Okay. Then we will take maybe management accounting, maybe asset accounting. Then I may even go ahead for material ledger because we spoke of all this. Okay. So I'll call it management accounting. This one is going to be my asset accounting. And to be my material ledger. Okay, just bear with me when I type these fields. Okay, so I'm just thinking as what are the fields we can talk of. Okay, so I may element have an amount to amount accounting. What I will have company have and okay, company material. We have multiple tables, multiple modules, all of which now is combined into one table. Okay. In this table, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag all the fields. I'm going to have ledger. I'm going to have up. Then from concern, I'm going to bring my market segment. Then cost element, amount 2, amount 3, fixed asset, material, etc. What am I doing? Basically, all the fields from all these tables, okay, basically all these fields from whatever table we can think of has come to this particular one table. Okay, this table is my universal journal. Okay, it contains all the fields of all the tables which whatever we are discussing. Okay, and the name of the table is AC.K. Okay, so from now onwards in finance, this is the table, the Bible for a finance guy. Okay, so any line item is going to be my AC.K table. AC.K is otherwise also called a universal journal table. Okay, so what concept for an universal journal? The concept is like this. Take the best of everything. In fact, taste the best of all worlds. That is how SAP defined it when they said AC.K. Okay. So the whole concept is you build one table by taking the best of everything. Okay. So this is going to be my one line. This is my one line item table. Now we are not going to have multiple line item tables. Instead, we are going to have only one line item table. Okay. Then this line item table, since we are talking about one line item table, what happens now? Data is stored only once. Okay. It is not stored multiple times. Okay. Now we are talking about data. What happens is data is stored only once, which means multiple tables, the same data is not stored again and again, whereby data redundancy goes for a toss, which means like data is not repeatedly stored anywhere. So redundancy is eliminated. Okay. Then what is eliminated? Functional point of view, since data was stored in multiple places, because data was stored in multiple places, functionally what did we do? We did some, okay, we were trying to see if everything was correct. Now we have only one line item table and the data is stored only once. By design, we don't do a reconciliation anymore. You see, so at the end of the month, a functional guy's biggest work, which is going to be he doing a month-end activity, quarter-end activity, year-end activity, will be eliminated or will be reduced. Okay. Then you remember I told you about data warehousing. We had BW extractors which do our reports, and I told you multiple extractors were used. Now, if you want to use a BW extractor, only one is suffice. Only one is enough. Okay. You don't need multiple BW extractors. Okay. Now, one more thing. There is no more FI and CO module separately. Okay. So you know, we had this concepts which you used to do in CO. They are now all part of GL accounting, which means they are not another account. That's all. Are now GL accounts. That's all. Okay. So these are the changes which happens when we move to universal journal. Right. Okay. So in the simple finance. Okay. Now there is a question which may arise. We spoke of standard tables. We spoke of all the standard tables which got merged into one table. Okay. Now what is the custom tables? You remember we will a lot of custom tables. So what happens now? The can be extended. Okay. To extend your universal journal. So what do I mean by that? You have standard fields. I want to add, how do I add, like we have something like, so all my custom fields of adding a custom field is, in the case of profit extensibility, coding block extensibility. This is a coding block extensibility. Okay, I can add custom fields to my table, my universal journal. When I say about my universal journal, okay. So this is one thing. So what are the things I told you? Multiple tables have been now grouped together to form AC.K. Okay. Now AC.K can be extended to add your own fields. Okay. Now the last part I mentioned is all these accounts become GL accounts. You remember? Because earlier different types of accounts used different tables. Earlier the case was we had different types of accounts. We have primary cost elements. Each use their own tables. Okay. Now, all these different accounts have just come down to one account or GL account. Okay. So let me just try to find out what are the different types of accounts we used earlier. So let me think. We had balance sheets. Then we had non-operating expense revenue. Then we had primary. This is what the CO part of it we did remember. Then now all of them are now GL accounts. How do we differentiate? Which is what we differentiate by just adding an indicator. Okay, when we go for a hands-on, when we create these accounts, I will just show you the screen. Now, when I'm going to create an account, if I'm going to put an X, then it is assumed it's a balance sheet account. Okay, then if I put a N, it's going to be my non-operating expenses and revenues. Okay, then again, if it is a P, it's going to be my primary cost element, and S is going to be my secondary cost elements. So, in order to appreciate what has happened is, it's very simple. Earlier, now all of them is a GL account. So technically, an end user has to remember only 2 or 3 T codes. Everything is a GL account. That's all. The most simplified term is account. There is no more balance sheet account. There is no more operating cost accounts. All that. There is no more. Everything is a GL account. So which means it does come down to 3 T codes. One to create a GL account, one to change it, one to display it. So that simple we have come down to. Instead of using 10 transaction codes, we have just brought it down to 3 transaction codes. Okay, so this is how you need to understand how this simplification happens. Okay, now last line which I want to mention about this is how things work is like this. Earlier, each of our FI part was like an island. Okay, we had GLs here, this we had CO here, we had asset accounting here. Each of them was an island, but they were well connected. Okay, so every time we know how to pick up values, things, etc., etc. Now it is no more an island. Okay, it's a unified world. It's one world. Okay, all of them are present here itself. So it's like we have FI, we have CO, we have everything is here. So no need for this traversal, no need for picking up value. Network of islands has now ended up as a unified. So this is what happened when we moved to Simple Finance. I have told you one statement which yesterday, I will repeat the statement. In SAP TechEd 2014, when they came up with Simple Finance, I really want you people to look at this YouTube video, SAP ERP Corp. That is the channel. If you, I think in Barcelona, they launched their Simple Finance. They make a statement like this. They say, we have simplified finance. Statement is a very powerful statement. They say, why did you do a simplification? Why you eliminated all the tables? The reason they mentioned is, we simplified finance so that it never fails. Okay, because only when you have 20 tables, 19 tables get updated, 1 table fails. Now, it is no more the case. Now the case is, it is simplified to such an extent, it never fails. Okay. Now, let us see, we did a processing, how we do a processing currently, and how we are going to move into Simple Finance and do the same process. Okay. So, basically, you have a logistics document which comes in. Okay. What happens is when it comes to the system, it gets divided into two parts. Is going to be my FI document because some FI tables are going to get updated. Then other is going to be my CO document. Okay. Then in the FI document, once the data is put up here, next level it's going to be some calculations. We are going to do some totals. We are going to have some indices. Okay. So basically all financial accounting. Same way, CO part also, there is going to be some totals, there is going to be some indices, and then basically this is our management accounting. Then what happens here? We calculate this, we calculate this. From this, we do some predefined aggregates. There is a set of predefined update. Okay. So once these predefined aggregates are done, what is the next step? It goes for processing, analytics, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is our current operating methodology. This is how it operates now. Okay, this is how the FI document, any document works now in SAP ERP. Okay, now in the case of SAP Simple Accounting or SAP Accounting or SAP Simple Finance, how it happens? We will see what are the changes which happen now. Okay, basically the same logistic document comes here. Okay, then we do not have any more FI document, CO document. Instead, we have only our universal journal entry. So okay. Yesterday itself we spoke, have eliminated all totals, aggregation, indexes, everything we have eliminated, which means any aggregation or anything has to happen on the fly. Okay, which is like it has to happen when the system just processes the same. So how do you do that? We do it using HANA views. So we'll come to that, what is a view and all that later. Okay, but we have to just remember that no more doing all this predefined aggregation, totals, tables, all of them is eliminated. We just have on the fly HANA views. So what is the next step? The next step is some of the documents can go for processing, some for analytics. Okay, so what are the things we have eliminated? We have eliminated this entire steps. This entire thing has gone for a toss. Instead, all of them is just replaced by the universal journal, and this universal journal is going to help us to do an aggregation on the fly, and based on that we are going to do the processing and also the analysis from this point of view to a simple finance point of view. Okay, so what is the advantages? Very simple. There is a harmonized external and internal reporting. There is a immediate or a drastic flexibility in both the reporting and analysis part of it. And finally, you can just deploy this in a heterogeneous system. Okay, that part of it I'll just come. And last but not least is we have a lot of memory, which is just, all this processing takes a lot of memory, but right now consumption is drastically reduced. Okay. Till now, what I did is I kept on speaking to you. So finally, I want to give myself a break, and I'm going to log into a system. So we spoke of AC.A. We just told it's a Bible and all that. So I want to just open it and show it across to you. So just give me 1 minute. I'll log. So this is going to tell me what kind of a table it is, what is my size, what is the data class, etc. But I do see a tab here. Okay, maybe in ECC6, if you do not have enhancements package 7, all that, you will not see this. Do you see something called DB specific properties? So once you click on to tell you what kind of a table it is. Remember yesterday we spoke of columnar storage. We said SAP HANA came up with this idea. They said we'll have column based tables. So this is where we do see a column store. Do you see a button here which says column store, row store, and undefined? Here, if you see here, this is where it says it is a column store. Okay, so this is a table with 317 entries, 317 fields, and this is a column store table. Okay, we have seen how a universal journal looks like. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to see how it gets updated. Okay, so in order for me to do that, what I need to do, I need to create a document. Okay, I need to create a GL. Okay, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to use the transaction code FB01. Okay, so FB01 is the transaction which we create a document, isn't it? So I just give a document date to the document as SA, which is my document. I've already given a company code. There is a currency which is there. So let me start by posting something. Okay, I'm just seeing if everything is fine. Okay, this is all fine. So I'm going to create a document. I'm going to post the document. Okay. 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 There's one question which has come up, so I just want to answer that before I go here. Okay. SAP Simple Finance is a part of SAP Business Suite. Okay. It's not like SAP's Business Suite is SAP Simple Finance. Over a period of time, maybe 2 years down the lane, SAP SAP Business Suite maybe ended up being called as Simple ERP. Okay. So now, if you see in my status, it says document 100.002 was created. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to see the document. So this is the document number. I hit enter. Okay. So I see a document which has got created here. Okay. So now, normally, what are the tables we go ahead and check? We check BSEC, we check BKPF, we check BSIS for all this document number. Now, for a change, I'm going to check where this document number got created. So I go to I go to AC16. I'm going to table AC doc. Okay. Now, my company code. Okay. Now my Bellner. I'll just give my accounting document number. Just a minute. Okay. I give my accounting document number and I hit the execute button. Okay. Now, if you see here, for the document which I have created there, all the entries has come up and it has got created in my AC doc A table. Okay. See? So my 317 fields. Okay, cool. So now we have executed one. We have created a finance document. We created an accounting posting document, and then we went to table AC doc A. We have given the name, and we saw that the entries have been created. So I do hope you got a feeling as how this table is looking like. This is the table which we kept on saying is the universal journal, the single source of truth, etc., etc. But once we log in and see, it is nothing but another table. The only difference is this is the table which we will be using quite a lot in our future. Okay, so I do hope this part of it was interesting. Okay, because I keep on talking a lot. So for a change, we can show something in the screen, right? Now, as I told, my AC docket table is going in which all the future things are going to get stored. Okay. Now, there is a question. What happens to the other tables? Okay. As of now, table BSEC will be continued to be used. Okay. But over a period of time, the usage of BSEC will come down. For the cases of other tables like BSIS, okay, one more thing. Is my voice breaking? Can somebody confirm? Because I have some of our colleagues who tell me my voice is breaking. Is the case? Okay. The next time it happens, do let me know. Okay, because I'm just checking from my end. I'm not able to identify it as what exactly is the reason here. Okay, can you people just confirm if this is fine? Okay, thank God. Sorry, I think it's a. I think the earphones what I'm using, the mics. Okay. So now we will go back to whatever we are discussing. Okay. The thing is, now I'm going back to my paint part of it. Okay. Now the thing is like this. So whatever we have spoken, I'll summarize it in one line for you. AC doc A will be the table which we will continue to use in the future. Okay. Then this is first point. Second point, what happens to the present tables? In the case of BSEG, which is quite used now, BSEG will be continued to use in the future, but it will not be the most important table as of today. Okay. Slowly and slowly its usage will come down. For the cases of other tables like BSIS, tables like BSIL, I guess, all the other tables, their usage will be reduced drastically right away. Okay, so everywhere the first case is it's going to be AC doc A table. Okay, like BSIS, BSIK. Etc. What will happen? These tables will be replaced by a view. Okay, so you know these tables right now have data. These tables, what they are trying to do is they are just going to keep a skeleton here. Name of BSI. Okay. Why do we need the skeletal structure, this view? We need this view because the moment the system comes across an old data from BSIS, it goes to this view of data by itself. It is just, it changes. Okay. And this structure, what it does is, so the same case for BSIK or BSIL. What is a view here? What is good? Instead, finally, you know, the whole idea comes down to only two tables. For all the modules, your header table will be, and your line item table will be A tables. Okay. Then, to the question of these views, you see, views by themselves can't hold any data. Okay. So, a data will be present in a view only during the runtime of a program. So, essentially, the case is when there is an old code where we are using some old tables. It's the tables which are not present. The whole idea is we have to create a structure, and the structure will just pull the values from AC doc A and display it on the screen. So only runtime part of it, this view is going to be useful for us. Other than that, this is not going to be useful in any ways for us. Okay. So this is how our structure for ACK in the future. This is what we are going to do. I mean, this is what we are implement, and this is what we are going to follow in the future. Okay. So AC doc A is going to be the one table. All the other old tables will have views. Then for tables like BSEG, they don't have a view. You can still access your BSEG table directly. Okay. But the idea is now the entry will fall in BSEG and also in AC doc A. Okay. But so you go ahead to use the values in AC doc A. So that is the idea as of today. Okay, 3 months down the lane, it may change because this is so rapidly evolving that what was the idea in November 2015 has become obsolete in March 2016, which is like 10 days back. On March 10th, they came up with another version. Okay, so this is a very rapidly evolving area. But the idea, the rock solid idea is AC.K is the Bible. AC.K is the one table. So in the future, you are a FI guy, you ask somebody to develop a program, or you are going to ask them to modify a program. The whole idea is you will tell them, boss, AC.K is the table you need to follow, right? Okay. So we spoke of AC.K, we spoke of simple finance, etc. Now we will come to a scenario what we will be placed with. Okay, that scenario, what is it? It's my scenario. We have a current server. We have to deploy my simple finance. So how do I go ahead and do a deployment? Okay, so first option, the most easiest option is going to be my just upgrade and migrate. So, so when I say upgrade, how do I say? Okay, assuming we'll assume that there is a multiple landscapes here. Okay, so okay. So, particular landscape, I can create my for each of the landscape. So how do I do it? For each of the landscape, I'm going to create a corresponding landscape and migrate to simple finance. Okay. One thing I want to tell you, when we talk of migrating to simple finance, if there is a system which is our present ECC 6, okay, if we have a system like ECC 6.0, okay, in order for me to migrate to simple finance, the first thing I should do is I should upgrade ECC 6. How do I upgrade this? I have to put up the latest enhancement, which is PHP 7. This is the enhancement package 7. Again, this should be on HANA. Okay, so this is the trick. If you are using a current ECC 6 system and someone tells you how do I migrate to simple finance, you have to first tell them, see, put up the latest enhancement package, which is EHP 7. And this EHP 7 should be on HANA database. Okay, so the first migrate works like this. For every one landscape we have, we can create a simple finance landscape. Only thing is, this is going to be in ECC 6, EHP 7 on HANA. The most simplest, you just upgrade, then you migrate. Okay, this is my simplest methodology. My second method is I upgrade and so that I'm going to create, migrate, and so what do I do here? I have multiple landscapes. Okay, I have to migrate to simple finance. Okay, here I may have 3 different landscapes, 3 different clients. Okay, but I will migrate to only one system here. So essentially, I will not have multiple landscapes. Instead, I will just have one landscape, which is my latest EHP 7 on HANA. Okay, so The second thing, first thing is I just upgraded, I just migrated. But here my migration happens, but instead of multiple landscapes, I'm just going to have one system. Okay. So this is my methodology. My third methodology, and the most important one, which you should know, is called replicate to central finance. Okay. So this is I'm using very often from. Okay. So what do I mean by this? Okay. So this is the terminology which we are going to use quite often from now onwards. Okay. There is a company. Okay. It has multiple landscapes. Not one, many. Okay. In addition, they also, this is a real-time scenario. We come across scenarios where people use systems. They have seen many non-SAP systems. Just give me 1 minute. Central finance system, or they create a simple finance system first. It's ECC6 with EHP7 on HANA. Okay. Now, earlier we saw what they did was they migrated, they moved. Okay. Here they don't do a migration. They don't do any migration. Instead, they replicate. Okay. So the data here is replicated to a different server. Okay. Then there is a real-time reconciliation also, because we have a non-SAP system which is there. So real-time we need to know if all the data is correct. We don't want any problems anywhere. Okay. And all of the data comes to a HANA database or a HANA simple finance system, which is called central finance. Okay. So this system is called a central finance system. This idea is a very important idea. You know why? The reason being, this is what is happening right now in many of the top financial institutions across the world. What they do, so like now our terminologies, we started with the S4 HANA, then we went to simple finance, then we have most of the year quite okay. So when they say central finance, it is nothing but you create a simple finance instance based on the many landscapes of SAP plus also the non-SAP landscapes. Okay, and you take their data and replicate the data. Okay, so why do they do it is they keep on replicating the data, and over a period of time, very slowly, they will start reducing the number of instances. First, there may be 10 SAP different landscapes. Then there may be 8. Then there may be 7. Then there may be 6. So on until they may stop using all these landscapes. And instead of you start using only our central finance, the same way they can also reduce this. Okay, but they do it very slowly. Okay, but the whole idea is it's an optional reduction of the number of instances over a time. Okay. This is part 1. The same idea. Okay. the same idea without any change. Instead of I replicating the real-time reconciliation, I'm not data. Slowly, I'm going to migrate. Okay. Slowly, I'm going to migrate. Okay. Again, this is also establishing a central finance system step by step. Okay. So, what are the 4 steps we saw? I will repeat all my 4 steps which I spoke of. First, we upgraded and we migrate. Okay. So, because this deployment scenarios is one area which you will come across very easily. If they, based on the system, they may ask you, what do you suggest? Do you need to do an upgrade and migrate? Okay. In such a case, what happens? When we do upgrade and migrate, all instances are just created again. Okay. Then the second case is we upgrade, we migrate, and consolidate also, which means the number of instances is brought down to 1. Okay. The third case, we replicate into central finance. We just replicated it into central finance. So the fourth case, it's a step-by-step scenario, but we move to central finance. Okay. So here the only thing you need to know is the terminology central finance, because in the next thing what you're going to see is how the central finance is going to get executed. Okay. So this is the idea when there is going to be a deployment for central finance. Okay. Now, as I told you earlier, central finance is going to be the core area. It's going to be a very important concept. Okay. So how does the central finance work? It's like that. We have an SAP system, we have a non-SAP system. Okay. This is my SAP system. This is my non-SAP system. Yesterday, I told you about a concept called SAP LT. Remember SLT? We spoke of SLT, okay, which was nothing but SAP landscape transformation replication server. And I'm just writing you the full terminology because we kept on saying SLT. The whole terminology is SAP landscape transformation replication server. So as the terminology says, from one landscape of SAP, you have to move data to the another. When I say move, it is nothing but replicate the data. Whatever is present in A should be present in B also. Okay. So what happens is SLT, what it does, we have our simple finance system here. I'm drawing quite a big box for it now. Okay. We have our journal here. So every time some updation of the database or some changes in the database, both in my SAP system and in my non-SAP system, a trigger happens. It's called a database trigger. I mean, these terminologies, they may look very fancy, but actually once you start using it, you will realize it's nothing but any change which happens in a database. You remember right now we created a GL document, okay? So the moment I create a GL document, it means some table is getting updated, okay? Once a table gets updated, if we have an SLT system, what happens is the moment the system says, see, some table is getting updated, SLT gets an information saying, okay, some table is getting updated. Then what it does is, it takes that information from that system and passes it to my HANA system. And what it does is, it puts the data into my HANA database, and nothing but it puts it into my AC.K table. Okay, so this is what I mean by a replication. whenever I say a replication, how does the replication work? The replication works like this. We have an existing SAP system. We have an non-SAP system which also uses finance. Okay, when both the SAP finance and the non-SAP finance database addition or database changes happen, the changes are captured by SLT. The SLT then moves the data to simple finance, which is nothing but it writes the table values in AC doc A table. Okay. Now, when I say SAP system, I'm meaning multiple landscapes. So you may have 10 different systems. You may have your development systems, you may have your quality, you may have production. Whatever is the system, whatever is the changes, all of them needs to be captured. But this is based on how you have designed the system. If I have systems that only my production should be replicated into my central finance, then only that part happens. Okay, so you understand that, right? So I hope we are all very clear. So when I say SLT, SLT is nothing but it's a replication server. How do I do it? Most of the time you would have done it already. Have you used BAPIs? We have something called remote function calls, SM59. We try to connect to SAP systems using a transaction code called SM59. SM59 connects to different systems. SLT also uses the same system, the same concept. You use SM59 to connect a non-SAP system, SAP system. You just move the data comes and falls in your table. Okay. Provided we have time in the future, we will do this also. Okay. But I just want you to get this idea. Okay. So, why do I need to do this? What happens when I do this? Basically, what happens is there is a finance harmonization which happens, which is like we have a heterogeneous system, which is like we have SAP systems, we have non-SAP systems, so on and so forth. But across all the systems, data is now harmonized. All the data is now consolidated and they are all present in my HANA Universal Journal Entry table. Okay. Now, why do I need to do central finance? Or right now, how does central finance help me? As of today, central finance is used only to do reporting. As of today. Okay, let me repeat. As of today, the use of central finance lies down only for reporting purposes. Okay, in the future, we will do maybe analytics, we will do predictions, we will do so on and so forth in the future. But right now, it is mostly used only for central finance reporting only. Okay. So, summarizing central finance reporting, what does it do? It takes from FI documents of SAP, CO documents of SAP, non-SAP documents of their postings and helps me get a reporting. Okay. So, this is all about central finance. Okay. Now, why do they have come up with central finances like this? See, central finance is the first for roadmap. Over a period of time, right now in 2016, by the end of 2016, you know what will happen? As of now, the first thing what we have is central finance. But over a period of time, we will have central planning. I mean, these are the ideas which are in pipeline for SAP. Okay, then we will have something like central cash management. We will have central So I don't know if these ideas have been implemented also. I'm not very sure. But this is the roadmap for them. Roadmap is right now, today, as of today, these two are available. You have central finance, you have central planning. 6 months down the lane, okay, customers will have an option to implement central invoices, central payments, central cash management, central material ledger, central fixed assets, so on and so forth. So think of it, like we live in exciting times. 1 year down the lane, everything will get simplified like simple finance, and we will end up having one server, which is my central server, having all the data which are with it at one place. So like whatever work we need to do, we'll be able to do it quite drastically. Okay. This central invoices and payments, the idea is like this receivables and payments will be done only in a central system. Again, any invoices will be cleared or paid in a central system. Okay. For the case of central cash management, this cash analysis and liquidity forecast can be done in a central system without the need to load the data from separate systems. Okay. Also, this bank communications, that the in-house cash, all these things will be taken care in the central cash management. Okay. In the case of central material ledger, what's going to happen? There will be material valuation on a group level. And so what will happen is there is this concept of cross-company profits. We will just eliminate it. Okay. Then for central fixed accounts, it will allow the asset accounting to work in SAP Simple Finance add-on. Okay. So the last of when I talk of consolidation, it is like the customers can do a group consolidation in the central finance system. Again, you need not take data from different systems, load it and do a consolidation, because the data is already available. We can just keep it there directly and we can go ahead and do it. Okay. Now, these are the future, what is going to happen right from current March 2016 by 2017. So these are the things which will come up with. Okay. Yeah, as of today, the idea is the central finance, which has already started, the idea is like this. You will just keep all the data in the central finance, use it for reporting as of today. Over a period of time, you will migrate to that and start doing all the works there. Okay, the works will be done. I will not call it as a duplication. It is more a migration from our ERP systems, our R3 systems to simple finance system. Once the migration is done, once the processing happens from simple finance, we will just abandon our old databases and move to HANA and the simple finance. So that's the whole idea. Okay. Now, I have already told you. So if we talk of how do we upgrade to simple finance, the whole idea is like this. Right now, the user is using any database, assuming the user has a system where he uses any database. Okay. And on top of it, he has an R3 system, assuming he has an R3 system. Okay. So he wants to migrate to simple. How it is going to happen? The first change has to happen database level, which means he has to migrate to HANA database. There is no option. Database is going to be HANA. Okay. In the case of he is going to have R3, he has to go for ECC. Okay. Now he already has. So this will be the first change. This will be the second change. Assuming again, if he has ECC system with any database, what he has to do? Any database he has to replace by HANA database. Now he has HANA database. He has ECC6. What is the next logical step? Next logical step is he needs to add enhancement package EHP7. So he has to put this package EHP7. Okay. If he has not done it earlier, this is the thing which he needs to do. If he has an R3, he has to go to ECC6. He has to upgrade to EHP7. Okay. Now, if he has done this, till now he has done this. Okay. what is the next logical thing he has to do is he can just move directly to Simple Finance 2.0. Okay. How do we do that? By installing SAP Business Suite on HANA. Okay. By installing SAP Business Suite on HANA. If he has an older version of it, he may end up with SFIN1. In such a case, he has to just migrate to SAP Simple Finance add-on 2.0. Okay, so this is what he's supposed to do. So a person likes it, he may not like it. The future is like this. From any database, SAP is forcing you to move to HANA database. One, if you have R3 systems, you have to go for ECC6. In the case of ECC6, what you're supposed to do is you need to have enhancement package 7, which is my latest package, and on top of it, you're going to install your SFIN 2.2. Okay, so this is a migration methodology. Okay, now when we talk of replication, when we talk of migration, all that, we keep repeating about SAP SLT. Okay, so you need to have a functional idea of a SLT. Okay, first things first, we have multiple methodologies of moving data from a non-SAP or an SAP system to SAP HANA system. Okay, but the most preferred way to move data, to replicate data, is SLT. You know why? Because it does a real-time replication. There are methodologies where you do replications by collecting bulk and then moving it. But here, in the case of SLT, the replication is a real time. Okay. Then there is delta capturing. So what it does, it minifies transfer volume. So what do I mean by delta capture? First time, from a non-SAP system, assuming this is my table in non-SAP system, this is my HANA system. First time, all the data here from this table, all the data moves to HANA table. This step I call it loading, okay, or more a full load. So first time this table contains 1,000,000 entries. I say a full load, and all the 1,000,000 entries move to this table. Okay. Now, in this system, some transactions happen, and some values are posted in the system. Assume 300 entries are posted. Now, SLT, when the 300 entries fall into this table, it immediately triggers a replication. Okay. So now this process is called replication. So whatever happens here, it gets replicated. The same 300 entries comes and falls here also. So every time a simple change happens in the table, it also gets replicated here. This process is called data capture. Okay. So what happens is, when the second time, the very first time the table load has 1,000,000 entries gets moved, the second time this process, there is only 300 entries moved, which will happen in like 1/10 of a second or 1/100th of a second. So transfer volume is minimized. We are not doing any batch process. We are not collecting the data, then loading it again, nothing like that. First time it's a full load. After that, it is always replication. Now, how the replication happens? It happens in real time. Okay. So this is the reason why we keep on using an SAP replication server. Okay. Now, let us understand how this replication server is placed. Okay. When I have a HANA system here, okay, this is my SAP HANA system. When I default, I install a HANA system, I have an option of putting an SLT as part of my system. But you know, conventional wisdom always tells me to maintain this system separately. The reason being, it is more easier for me to connect to different systems. Now this is an SAP system and this is a non-SAP system. Understanding this architecture helps you quite a lot. So I'll be very happy if you can listen to this intently. Most of the time when we migrate, technical issues will happen only when we do data transfer from a non-SAP SAP system to SAP HANA system. So for you to understand how the data moves, it's the most important thing. So I really want you to just be very aware of this, okay? Because some of the things are very minute here, some of the things are very important here, okay? Now, SLT can connect basically to any SAP system and to any non-SAP system. In the case of SLT, again I told you, you can keep SAP SLT as part of HANA system, but normally they suggest you to keep it separate. It should be a separate server, okay? So that way it can connect to any places, and we can also help. We can also see it how it works, okay? Now, the connection between an SAP system and SLT is RFC. I told you, remember, SM59 is the transaction code for it. If you go to SM59, if you have an SAP system, try SM59 and see how it gives an option to connect. So our landscape transformation server, what it does is it connects to SAP using RFC. But in the case of non-SAP systems, it's a direct database connection. Okay, here the connection is DB connection, because these are the things which will be the tricky part of you. These are the things which will confuse you. Okay, so for you to understand, you understand this part. Okay, so our understanding is SAP SLT connects to SAP system using RFC. SLT connects to non-SAP system using database connection. Okay. Now, in the case of an SAP system, we have some tables here. Okay, we have some tables. Okay. You know what SLT system will do in the case of an SAP system? It puts a read module here. Okay, we have a read module here. And this read module keeps on reading these tables. So, whenever there is a change, it keeps on monitoring this table, or it keeps on watching these application tables. Now, there is a change in the table. Some entries has been added. I told you a trigger is set, and it's kind of an alarm. It says, okay, something happens here now. There is a trigger. Okay, when the trigger happens, we have a set of logging tables. These logging tables, what are these logging tables do? These logging tables have the last change details. They are checked if whatever trigger happened is making any change. Change is made here. Okay. Then these changes are going into my SLT, where I already have something called, I have a read, I have a mapping and transformation, and I have a write. Okay. First, I'll draw this first. I have a read here, I have a mapping, I have a write. And this write actually goes ahead and writes value to my application tables here. So, in the case of SAP read, which is present in the SAP system, what it does is, the moment the table change trigger is set, this trigger updates the logging tables, which goes ahead to the SLT. The SLT then takes the data, does some mapping, checks if all the data is fine. Then it says to the write module, go ahead and write it in HANA. So it comes and writes in HANA. Okay. So I hope you understood the SAP part of it. In the case of non-SAP, I told you already that we have a database connection. Here, there is no read module. There is a set of application tables. There is a set of application tables here. The moment this table gets changed, trigger happens. The trigger is set here. Okay. Immediately, the logging tables are checked and updated. And this data goes to SLT, where again the data is taken, mapping, transformation, what is to be written, everything is done, and it goes here. Now, one more thing. The connection between SLT and HANA is again a DB connection. So, connection between SLT and SAP is RFC. Connection between SLT and non-SAP is DB. And connection between SAP, SLT and HANA is also DB. Okay. So, this diagram and this architecture is very, very, very important. Why it is important? Because there are cases when what is used, data is written. This understanding is very essential. Why? The very first job which we will most of the time we will do when we do a migration is data loading and delta load also. Okay. So I hope this is clear. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to repeat what I told you. SLT is going to connect SAP HANA systems to other SAP ERP systems and non-SAP systems. Then based on the database trigger, it's going to pull the values and then it's going to read the values, map the values, do some transformation if any transformation is involved. Then it goes for a write module. The write module takes the value and writes it directly to our HANA database. Okay. I will for sure show you a demo as how this works. Maybe not this class, but in our next class, we will see how the data is written so that you get a better idea as how SLT works. Okay. So this is about how we move the data from SAP to non-SAP. Okay. Then we spoke of migration. We spoke of what else? Okay, the one thing we need to speak of migration is there is something called DMO and there is something called classical migration. Okay, we have two options. One is my DMO migration, the other is going to be my classical migration. Okay. I'll just write it down. Okay. In the case of SAP systems, okay, basically, the big difference between SAP Simple Finance 1 and 2 is like this. In the case of 1, we had some concepts like logical documents and etc., which we have eliminated in Simple Finance 2. Okay, we are not bringing it out. So that is what basically we have done. And this focus on universal journal entry happens too much in SFIN 2. Okay. Now, when we come to migration part of it, you want to migrate your existing SAP system to SAP HANA. Okay. Then we do the in-place migration. When I say in-place migration, you know, it is like I don't want to change any landscape. I want to avoid all landscape changes. Okay. So how do we do it? There is something in our system which is called SUM, which we do have in our system. It is called Software Update Manager. Okay, so this SAM has an option called a DMO. Okay, DMO. DMO is nothing but database migration function. Okay. In the case of we use a DMO, we move from a source database to a target database. You know, what are the things which get affected? Normally, the things which get affected when we do a migration is very simple. We have these conversions. You know, we say Unicode conversion. Remember, this is my source database. This is my target database. When I'm moving from my source to my target, when I use the DMO methodology, which is what is present in SMO. Okay. So what happens here, if you use the direct system given methodology, it does your Unicode conversion directly. You don't need to do anything. Then we do an update. Then we do the database migration. So everything is taken care when we do the SURYA part of it. Okay. So DMO simplifies the migration, and actually it is referred as one-step procedure. Okay. Whereas in the case of a normal migration, you know how we would have done it? We have an old system. In the case of a normal migration, we would have first gone ahead to upgrade the system. Okay. We have to do some update here. Okay. Then this is what is called classical migration. Then what we do is we migrate. In between, you need to do your Unicode conversion, etc., 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 etc. Okay. So this is the next thing which we need to know once we do a migration. Okay. Okay. Then what else we need to talk about? Okay. The last thing which we need to know about migration, the last thing what we need to know is, see, when I'm going to move from a normal finance to simple finance, the one area which we have not yet spoken about is custom code. So what is a custom code? Custom code is user would have written at least 500 to 600 reports by his own. Okay. Now, I'm doing a migration. Though I told you that system will understand his old code, system will understand that some of the tables are not used anymore, there is a need for me to do some changes or to do some migration of the code to SAP HANA. Okay. All the code, generally speaking, all the codes which run in your existing platform will continue to run as before on SAP HANA. Okay. But there are three areas in which some issues will occur, especially in the case of custom code. Okay. What are the areas? The first thing is, some part of my old code can lead to functional issues. Okay. Functional issues is, now old table is there, I use a select statement to pick up the values. What it does, it goes to a view, it goes to pick the values. What in the case of I try to delete a value or I try to insert a value? The table no more exists. Okay. So there are scenarios where functional issues may come. Okay. In such a case, we may need to end up doing some minor modifications to the code. Okay. So this is the first thing. Then the second thing is, you know, there are, because we are dealing with custom codes, there is a set of codes which would have been written, which would have worked fine in an older scenario, but right now they are contrary to good